When you think that our world has simply just gone too far, that really you can't even make a difference, you're actually doubting God. The fact is, the real reality is that he can do anything, and he can do it through us.
That's a very timely message from our Family Foundation President, Victoria Cobb. And how about you? When you look at all the chaos surrounding us in this culture right now, do you really believe God can and wants to change the culture, redeem the culture, and empower his people, Christians like you and me, to accomplish that? More on that in a moment. But first, welcome to Speak Up Virginia. I'm your host, Candi Cushman, and I'm excited to bring you a wonderful message from Victoria today, where she really shares her heart about the most destructive things being pushed onto our children, young girls, and families right now, and why she hasn't given up hope, that God is still working through us, and how Family Foundation's mission gives you the tools you need to be a part of all that. This is her speech actually from the annual gala that we are now releasing, which by the way was given shortly before the election, you'll notice. But we want you to be able to share this so that you can help encourage your friends and neighbors who really need that spiritual refreshment right now on why we should never give up on God's hope for our nation and the people and the families in this great nation. Before we get started, just want to make one note. Remember to subscribe to our Speak Up Virginia playlist on YouTube, because that makes it much easier for you to share with people. And also, you can share the program through Apple and Spotify and those audio-only platforms as well. So without further ado, here's Victoria.
So it's about 37 days, 5 hours, and something like 4 minutes until something significant happens. You might have heard a little bit about it. They claim like the whole civilization depends on the outcome, that kind of thing. But really, for some of you, you are genuinely looking forward to the potential change in the administration. For others of you, you're just looking for your phone to get unclogged from all the political text you're getting. But I think the way that my son watched the election returns in 2016 is actually kind of similar to how we might watch them this year as we are in 2024. Far too closely and with our security blanket in hand. No matter how you watch the election returns, no matter who is elected, our work to create a better future for our children and our grandchildren must remain, and we must remain unwavering in our efforts. We live in a crazy world. I know I don't have to tell you that, but earlier this year, a Virginia school board member took their oath of office by he took his hand and placed it on and swore his allegiance to pornography. Not the Bible, not even another sacred text, pornography. Not only was he mocking God, but it was also a blatant slap in the face to all those parents across the country, across Virginia, and in his own county who have been thoughtfully challenging the age appropriateness of certain books in curriculum and in their libraries. In that very same county, the school board hired a self-proclaimed bondage specialist to be the person who determines if complaints from parents about sexual content in books are actually taken seriously. In her professional bio, this person stated, quote, "I work from an affirming and social justice approach with the LGBTQIA community and people of color, and I am kink and non-monogamy informed and affirming," and it goes on and on from there, but I will leave it at that. As I once heard my friend John Stonestreet say, things that were unthinkable yesterday become unquestionable today. The direct clash between the LGBTQ agenda and our faith is very clear. It cannot be ignored any longer. This year, one county decided that out of all the days of the year, that Easter would be the Transgender Visibility Day, Easter Sunday. Do you now know that there are 259 days on our calendar that are different days that are to affirm the LGBTQ lifestyles. These include, of course, June Pride Month, October LGBT History Month, and the week before Thanksgiving that is Transgender Awareness Week. Because, of course, that explains the Easter extra day, because awareness and visibility are so dramatically different that we have to have more holidays to celebrate those things. Our world is just upside down, and its understanding of family is upside down. On the one hand, liberals in our state actually acknowledge that families are important, and they did that on the first hand by having a Family First tour across Virginia. But on the other hand, that tour followed a session where they had proven that they have absolutely no idea what a family actually is. So during that session, the leftists in our General Assembly made it very clear that they don't understand what a mother is. They put forward legislation that instead of referencing pregnant women, they inserted the term birthing persons. When confronted in committee with an amendment by Senator Peake, where he simply suggested that we call that class of people mothers, they refused. Later on in the legislative process, they let this otherwise good bill on maternal health care die because they wouldn't accept Governor Youngkin's clarification that, in fact, only women give birth. But how can we expect them to understand what motherhood is if they don't acknowledge the value of babies? With the full support of our legislative team, led by Dr. Todd Gackey, Delegate Mark Earley, who's with us here tonight, introduced a bill that simply ensured that in Virginia's family life education classes, those students learn human embryology by watching an ultrasound video. Apparently these days, showing an ultrasound, a medical diagnostic test, is so threatening it can't be shown to students. Their denial of women, motherhood, and babies was sort of summed up in the words of our vice president recently, who said in her fairly typically condescending tone, "A majority of women who get abortions are mothers." No, Kamala, all women who get abortions are mothers. They are all mothers. But to be fair to those who went on this Family First tour across our Commonwealth, it's hard to understand motherhood and babies if you have no idea what a woman is, right? This is a challenge, which they made perfectly clear, and they do so every single time they go to block our Save Girls sports bill. We think this proposal is fairly straightforward. Only girls play girls' sports. This seems pretty commonplace. We even brought in Riley Gaines one time to try to help clarify these things for them, but even she could not help them get past their obstinance. This altered state of reality that we seem to be living in, it could lead one to despair or discouragement, just desperation. And it would be understandable if sometimes you feel that way, and you wouldn't be alone. However, the problem with those feelings, those emotions that you get, is that they are exactly what the opposition wants. Because those emotions, they lead us to inaction, to uselessness. Sadly, those feelings stop good people from doing the right things all the time, from voting, from showing up at a school board meeting, from letting your voice be heard with your legislator, or from having the hard conversation with your friends and your family. When you think that our world has simply just gone too far, that really you can't even make a difference, you're actually doubting God. The fact is, the real reality is that He can do anything, and He can do it through us. For the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. This year, this word from Mordecai seems even more prevalent, should ring more especially true to us in this national election moment where truly the fate of Israel may be deeply impacted by the policies set by the next administration, an administration that we choose if we're engaged, because it's the engaged that will choose the fate of Israel in many ways, those that are involved in voting and knocking and conversations. The point of Mordecai's words, though, is that God can accomplish His will for our nation for our commonwealth, for your family, with or without you. But boy, he'd sure like to do it through you, and Scripture says that over and over again. At the Family Foundation, we've chosen to put ourselves in a position to be used by God to do his will. We volunteer to take the fiery darts of the aggressive left to work alongside God in what he is doing. We don't think that Jesus taught the disciples when he taught them to pray, when he said, "Thy will be done, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." We don't think he taught them that and then expected them to step aside and have God work around them. The Family Foundation engages because pushing back the darkness saves lives and prevents harm. I've often been asked how I can remain in the battle to save the unborn because it feels like the tide has turned against us. Admittedly, we're not having a fun moment in the pro-life movement right now. We're seeing our state targeted as a destination for abortion. And even those abortions that happen in later term in pregnancy, causing our annual volume of abortion in Virginia to grow 103% in 6 years. And having 5 new abortion clinics pop up. And I'm not even talking about the one that the city of Richmond right now is trying to give to Planned Parenthood for $10. Of course, our law center is hard at work on that. We aren't going to let Planned Parenthood ruin our city without a fight. In fact, in the weeks and months to come, you'll be hearing a lot from us about the effort by the abortion industry to enshrine into our state constitution a permanent restriction from our legislature ever being allowed to limit abortion in any way at any time. No matter how late in the pregnancy it is, no matter how coerced the woman is, and no matter how unsafe the facility might be. But I remain in this battle through the ups and downs because for me, it has never been about whether the secular, godless public agrees with me. It's always been about cherishing the human potentiality of an unborn child based on God's design ingrained in every fiber of DNA from the earliest moments of conception. I've always wanted to be a part of delivering hope. God doesn't abandon people in their hard circumstances, those hard moments, even when a child is born out of those hard circumstances. And his redemption often comes through that child born out of hard circumstances, because that child still bears his image. I want to be vocal on the side that announces the network of support for women who find themselves in hard circumstances. And I want to be louder than the lies of despair that are brought to these women by the abortion industry. And you're welcome to join me in that when we have our next Walk for Life, our March for Life next year, April 9th, 2025. You can be part of that voice. The battle is worth engaging because despite having every pro-life law we had ever passed for decades stripped away by a liberal legislature, if you think about it though, during the years from 2014 when we had all the protections in place to the years of 2020 where they stripped them all away, at least 21,765 lives were saved as the abortion rate fell more and more every year under those protections. Every one of those lives, those are real lives. Those are worth the battle. Those are children that are now in preschool and elementary school. Those children are our future. When the Founding Freedoms Law Center kept Hope for Life's mobile unit, it's an ultrasound unit that's mobile on the streets outside of the Planned Parenthood in Virginia Beach, when they kept that open during COVID by pushing back against Virginia Beach City Police who wanted to shut it down, you know what? The twins that were born as a result of the ultrasound that mom got that day, those twins are worth it. When our attorney at the Founding Freedoms Law Center rescued a teen out of the back door of an abortion facility and got her real help, Makari, Terrell McDowell's son, he's worth it. He's worth the battle. You see, when we feel discouraged, when we feel that our work is somehow in this nebulous space of public policy, it's not. It's in the real lives changed. And it's not just in the area of protecting human life that we seek to hold back the darkness. It's also what we do with our Speak Up teams. When our Speak Up teams, under the direction of Candi Cushman, are rallying at school boards and school board meetings to get the wise policies that we need around the issue of transgender students, it's not an exercise in futility. Winning this battle in Newport News, like our Speak Up team that did this year, means that Newport News is trying to prevent what Loudoun County lived firsthand. They're not letting boys enter private spaces where they do not belong, a policy that is rife with danger for our girls and that Loudoun knows results in sexual assault. Engagement doesn't just push back the darkness, it can turn the tide. And sometimes it can even win. Of course, while many choose to abandon the field out of discouragement or a feeling of despair, too many are not engaged because the issue of abortion or the issue of transgenderism just hasn't quite hit home yet, doesn't affect them yet. Yet, even when the current flashpoint doesn't directly affect you, by the time it does, it may be too late. We're all familiar with the oft-repeated quote by Martin Niemöller, the German pastor who, after the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II, he spoke of it as sort of a realization of regret, that the German church had been complicit with the Nazis in their actions by not speaking out. He condemns his own silence, his own inaction, and his own indifference. In it, he says, "First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." This might be an extreme comparison, but between the unholy alliance of secular elites, Hollywood, the media, and those that followed them with blind allegiance, I'm tempted to be concerned that anything could happen. The list of who they're coming after today is different, but it's growing every day. Today, it looks something like this. First, they came for the cake baker, but I was not a cake baker. Then they came for the photographer, but I was not a photographer. Then they came for the teacher, but I was not a teacher. Then they came for the surfer, and we'll hear more from her later on today, but I was not a surfer. And then they came for the realtor. Oh, maybe you haven't heard that one. Right now, our Founding Freedoms Law Center attorneys, Josh Hetzler and Michael Sylvester, have teamed up with local Stanton attorneys who are also here to represent a bivocational minister and realtor whose name is Wilson Faber, he's also here in our audience, in an ethics charge issued by the National Association of Realtors. What was his supposed crime? He dared to post on his personal Facebook page the Bible's definition of marriage as being between one man and one woman, which when he posted it, by the way, in 2015, it happened to actually be the law of the land. But fast forward to more recent times when he dared to also post about the injuries that come to women when men enter their sports. As it turns out, his statement is perceived to run afoul of the Realtor Association's recently adopted provision about hate crimes, hate speech, this idea that somehow his words are hateful. Apparently, quoting the truth of the Bible is now enough to trigger a formal ethics complaint that could ruin a real estate agent's career. No profession is safe from getting in the crosshairs of the left. And now they're coming for the counselors. Just a couple days ago, our Founding Freedoms Law Center announced that it is representing John and Janet Raymond, also here tonight, both professional licensed counselors who regularly counseled minors, often in issues of gender and sexuality, until in 2020, when Virginia passed the ban on so-called conversion therapy, which actually is a ban on just simply talking to people and simply helping them align their thinking with the biology that God has given them. Today, to help a child in this way, the Raymonds would be violating the law and would lose their livelihood as the state would revoke their license. We look forward to restoring free speech and religious freedom for all Virginians through this case. Who are they coming for next? You? Your spouse? Your pastor? Well, at the Family Foundation, we engage because we believe this mounting list has to stop, and it has to stop now. I've told you why the Family Foundation engages, but I'm not pretending it's easy. This year, our organization was added to the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate group list. In one sense, we'd like to say, it's an accomplishment of sorts. You must know the list. In one sense, we want to say, who cares that we've been added to this hate list of this phony leftist group that the media somehow props up and makes them look legitimate? But on the other hand, it does matter because a group like us, Family Research Council, was on this list, and as a result of being on this list, a man walked into their office pretending to deliver Chick-fil-A and pulled out a gun ready to do harm. On a less violent note, the hate list is regularly consulted by certain donor-advised funds and matching programs to block funds from supporters to groups like ours. Fundamentally, it's an insidious effort to smear Christians and pro-family nonprofits. I've shared with you the temptation to not engage, and I've shared with you why the Family Foundation chooses to engage. And now I'm going to close by telling you why I engage. Some of you know I was called to this work early, at a young age, at the age of 11, truly, I believe, by God. You may have heard that I was inspired by my grandmother, who really understood that this nation, with all of its flaws and warts, was a blessing, and it was a gift given by God to be living in this country, and she knew that Scripture commanded us to steward that well. But when it gets right down to it, I engage because I have 4 children, and their future depends on it. So yes, we can join in fear and anxiety and even in despair. We can allow those emotions to paralyze us. We can be bludgeoned into inaction. We can believe the commentators and the pundits when they say our vote doesn't matter, our voice doesn't count, that we'll lose no matter what we do, and that there is no hope. Or we can choose a different path. We can choose the path that so many before us chose, from Queen Esther to the abolitionists. We can choose to stand for truth, be faithful, and trust God with the outcome. At the Family Foundation, we really don't have a choice. We made that decision long ago, that no matter the political tide, no matter the culture, no matter the opposition, that we will fight. Tonight, will you put aside your fears about our future to commit to engage? Commit that no matter the circumstances, your faith will be unwavering. Commit to vote, even when the candidates are imperfect. Commit to join your local Speak Up team to affect your own community. Pastors, commit to joining the Church Ambassador Network and come pray with your legislators. Commit to joining us in all we do and can do to make sure that in the future, our children and our grandchildren can look back at this moment and look back at what we did and be proud of us. That they won't look back and ask, why did my mom and dad not stand up when they had a chance? Why did they remain silent? Thank you.
I hope that speech encouraged you spiritually as much as it did me. And I hope you will join us in taking up Victoria's challenge to follow in the footsteps of those who walked in courage, the courage of their faith before us, whether it's Queen Esther, the abolitionists, or modern day heroes who are right now taking a stand for life and for religious freedom. As we head into the legislative session, there are going to be plenty of opportunities for you to join your voice with this movement, to take a stand right alongside these people, because there's going to be some really high-stake battles that we are facing over the whole abortion issue, adding unlimited abortion as a protected right in the Constitution. That's going to be a battle. We already have words submitted for that, already have that proposed, the whole protecting girls' sports issue, and more. So make sure you are signed up in advance to stay on top of all this through our email and our text alerts. Just head over to familyfoundation.org. That's familyfoundation.org, and make sure you're signed up to get the action alerts. And while you're there, you might check out our banner that talks about restoring a right-minded Virginia, because that gives you an opportunity to also support the work we're doing with a donation. At this time of the year, end of year, it's a key time for nonprofit ministries to bolster up that type of support. And that's true for the Family Foundation as well. So that's an easy way to help out. Again, that's restoring a right-minded Virginia banner at familyfoundation.org. And I just want to say, I want you to know how thankful we are for your partnership, whether that's through civic engagement on the ground or responding to an email action alert or financial support. We are so thankful for the many ways that all of you join together with us. You know why it means so much to us? Because our staff then knows we are not here doing this alone. We are walking in step with you together. You are standing with us, and it means really so much to us. So thank you. One more note here. I mentioned that the Virginia legislative session is starting up right after the holidays. That's January 8th. And we are going to be putting together a rundown of the most important bills that we want to oppose and support. And your voices are going to be needed for that. So we're going to be bringing you a key report in our next podcast on January 15th. With the holidays, we're kind of on a sporadic schedule with the podcast because people are traveling and things. And it's just kind of hard to get everybody in the office together. But once that session starts, we're going to have a report as soon as possible. So mark your calendars now to join back with us on January 15th, because our podcast will start back on normal schedule then. And with that said, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'll just leave you with this encouragement from God's Word, because we need to get a head start, getting our minds and our spirits set for 2025. And I just want to leave you with this from Psalm 137, verse 7. Put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. Let's think about that. We'll see you next time in 2025.
I just want to announce to everybody, my heart has grown 3 sizes.
Oh my God. Who is that?
I don't know.
I no longer loathe the Family Foundation.
Is that Todd?
Yeah.
All right, well, with that, Merry
Christmas.
Christmas again.